Yay.
We be live.
We do be.
Yeah.
We do.
It's up here that does that. I see. On YouTube, is that a link? Did it give me a link? Apparently, it gave me a link. I see. It did.
You want a link? I'll give you a link.
No, it's like right there on the thing at the top of the screen. Hey y'all. I'm Bear Bill, the dude. And well, that's like just your opinion, man. Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. The Dude Abides. A couple of things I want to talk about today. I mean, I really want to get into gaming programming because apparently that's a very that's a very in-demand thing. It's a valuable skill to have if you want to get a really high-paying job programming. Then video game companies pay very, very well for skilled programmers who understand their gaming engines. But before we get into that, I want to talk about something that's really exciting to me, which is the Artemis mission. They just announced today the astronauts that'll be going up on Artemis 2. Artemis 2 is scheduled to launch later this year. I forget exactly when. I think it might be in December. I'll have to look that up. In any event, it's the missions ago. Once they assign a crew, then they're in full speed ahead mode, getting ready to launch. Unless something catastrophic happens, and this mission will have 4 astronauts, 4 crew, and it'll go to the moon, and it will traverse the moon and come home. And the purpose of this mission is like, how when you're setting up your development environment to write some code, first thing you do is a hello world, and the purpose of that is to test out all the pieces of your development environment, right? That's kind of like what Artemis 2 is. They're testing. I mean, it's a lot more complicated than that, but they're validating the crew module, they're validating the life support, they're validating all of the stuff that they need to get to the moon, and all of their propulsion systems and everything. They're actually going to get to the moon and do everything but land. And then Artemis 3, which will happen a couple of years later, it's scheduled for December 2025.
How do they already have that?
This is my plan. Artemis 3 will actually land on the moon with the human environment module. Two crew members will land on the moon. 2 crew members will stay in orbit. And the 2 crew members that land on the moon will spend 6.5 days on the moon. They'll drive around in a rover. The rover is going to be launched and landed remotely near the south pole of the moon. And it'll be recovered by the crew members, and they'll drive it around and collect samples. And the purpose of that mission is to lay the groundwork for building an actual space station on the moon, which is the next step after that. And I'm super excited about this. As somebody who was involved in NASA early in my career back in the 70s, I was super disappointed when space exploration just stopped dead in its tracks right while we were, doing some of the greatest stuff that had ever been done. And it's been 50 years since Apollo 17. It'll be 53 years by the time they actually land on the moon. If they're on schedule, it'll have been exactly 53 years since Apollo 17 was the last manned mission to the surface of the moon. Yes, Kirsten Hoopla
in the back. Hoopla. So my question is, and I'm sure that there's a big long explanation to it, but this is what I envision in my head, like how they choose who gets to actually go onto the moon? Like, I'm thinking rock, paper, scissors, or pulling sticks.
So how they choose is extremely complicated.
Okay. Well,
There's a lot of, physical testing, mental testing, making sure that they've got, all the right stuff. But then from what's left, the people that pass it that far, then there's politics.
okay.
And there's going to be a lot of that involved. And there are,
Glad
this one had to be very representative of all different walks of life. And they included a Canadian very much on purpose because they're in partnership with the Canadian Space Agency. And so, I mean, a lot of that stuff will be involved. And there's seniority involved and, all of that. So, yeah, but mostly they have to be qualified. They have to be physically fit. They have to be mentally alert. They have to have good, engineering and science skills, not just for the parts of the mission that, that are science related, but also, just in case they got to back somebody up or, they got to fix something on the spaceship and, to be able to get home. I strongly recommend that everybody watch the film Apollo 13, which is absolutely true and accurate representation of what happened on the actual Apollo 13, where they got stuck and they all thought they were going to die, and they were able to pull a win out of, chewing gum and toilet paper rolls. It's like amazing what they did to be able to get that spaceship back. And besides, it's just a good movie, Tom Hanks. Yeah. And it was directed by Opie. I always forget his name. I always think of him as Opie from Mayberry, from the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
Little kid, he's now like a big ass, big time director.
That's my dad's nickname for my oldest. He calls him Opie.
Yeah,
because he is very similar to that child.
There's a lot of honor in that name. You
Also, a lot of shenanigans.
Called a lot worse.
I've been called worse by better.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about gaming programming and how's our audience looking, Rickety?
So far, so good. I just added the taggings and we have a couple watchers, but I'm gonna have to give it a minute for that tagging to go ahead and start showing up in searches.
Okay, well,
I'm adding our thumbnail right now, hence why I've been quiet.
Good. I'll start with some pointless stories, and that way we can, give people a minute to hang on a second here. Yeah. So I haven't done any gaming programming in a long time. I've been thinking about getting back into it from the perspective of an educator. Maybe later this year, early next year, when I'm done, filling up my channel with all of the core competencies that I really want to put on there. But yeah, so the last time I did any gaming programming, it was probably the early to mid 80s. And the technologies that we used back then are, very different than today. Of course, we were using C. C++ wasn't really a thing yet, but so all of the coding was done in C. All of the games were two-dimensional back then. And so, our characters were two-dimensional and the motions were two-dimensional. And there was a technique called sprites that was very, very popular and very effective, which used memory mapping to be able to get the animation to a high frame rate, you know, because we didn't have the hardware that we have today, with these big fast GPUs that'll, you know, allow you to do, you know, 4K and higher video resolution at 60 frames and faster frame rates, you know, all with, you know, big, you know, JPEG type graphics. We didn't have that back then. I mean, the hardware wasn't there to be able to accomplish that. So in order to get a character to move and to change like its facial expressions and things, we had a technique called sprites, where there would be one big image, usually a GIF, or as the kids call it today, a GIF, that, you know, 16 colors was standard. Sometimes you get up to 256 colors if you had, you know, really powerful hardware. And different sections of it's a bitmapped image, and so different sections of it would have different parts of the character or parts of the animation, and you would just do memory swaps to get the animation to happen. And this was very, very fast. It was also, you know, very abstract and difficult to accomplish. I mean, back then I spent a lot more time writing assembly language than I did writing C. And I had some super fast memory swap routines that were all written in assembly language to make this kind of stuff happen very fast. So that was the technology back then, you know, 40 years ago. Today, the demands are similar. I mean, the requirements are similar. The technology is just more advanced. The hardware is much, much faster. You don't really need to write very much, if any, assembly language. And you have these engines like Unreal Engine and what's the other one here? Unity Engine. And you interact with those engines, and you have separate programmers or coders and designers or graphic artists, you know, who do the graphical design, and they don't need to know any programming. They just interact directly with the engine, you know, and their graphic assets. And the programmers are the ones that do, you know, like the, you know, moving the characters, you know, all the logic of the game and that sort of stuff. How are we doing on our audience? We got
sounds like a lot of work goes into that. Here, let me refresh it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's very, very rewarding.
Okay, that looks cool. Sorry, hang on. We have 3 right
now. Okay, I'm just going to go on. Y'all let me know in the comments if this is interesting to you, if this is something that you want to spend a little more time with, and I'm happy to do so. I'm actually thinking about later this year or next year, after I have all of my primary content up, of getting into either Unreal Engine or Unity Engine. You know, I think so. Let's talk about the engines. For the big gaming companies that put out the big games, like on the consoles and on desktop, those folks are using Unreal Engine or something similar to that. For the most part, I think they're all using Unreal Engine at this point. Unreal Engine is the backbone. It does all the heavy lifting and allows you to concentrate on the logic of the game and on the graphics of the game. And it handles all the physics and you know, all the heavy lifting. Unreal Engine is written itself in C++. And so if you want to work on that, you need to understand C++. But also the coding interface, the API, the job of the programmer who's working on the game, that's also done in C++. And so if you want the highest paying jobs, the most challenging jobs, the most interesting jobs in gaming, then you really want to learn C++. Unity engine is, started out with mobile, and I understand that there's some now desktop games and perhaps console games, I'm not really sure, that are written using Unity engine. Unity engine is like the lightweight upstart. It's not as powerful, and it's not as flexible, but it's designed for mobile. And if you want to write mobile games, that's probably the place to start. And unlike Unreal Engine, Unity Engine uses scripting languages to interact with the API and to write your game in. And of those, from what I understand, C# is the language that's most popular with Unity Engine. C# is a very Microsoft-centric language. It's specifically written for Windows. You can do a lot of Windows programming in it. I don't know that you can use it on other platforms. Not that I've seen. Perhaps there's things that I haven't seen and that I'm not aware of, that where C# is used on other platforms. I know that Unity Engine was originally developed on a Mac, so I'm not sure. I understand also that there's other scripting languages that you can use, and I don't know if you can use Swift or not. I like Swift. I'm not fond of C#.
Of the Taylor variety?
Oh, Swift. There's a language called Swift. And as I understand, it was actually originally created by Taylor Swift.
I love it.
She's not, performing and writing music and making music videos and all of those things. Then she's actually a very, very skilled computer programmer. And
the more you know, folks.
Yeah. So Swift is a cool language. I used it a little bit back in the beginning, and I got very frustrated because they released it too soon and it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready when they released it, and then the version 1.0 had so many big differences from the pre-release version, and then the version 1.2, 1.3, they all had these big changes to the language, and I got very frustrated because I kept having to rewrite my code. And so I just went back to Objective-C, which, is more my thing. So my background is mostly as a systems programmer. And I've done very little application. I mean, I've done some, but most of the application work that I've done has been like embedded applications and, industrial applications and things like that. I've not done a whole lot of consumer applications. I used to have a Whois command line utility that also worked on web, and it was very, very popular. It was open source, and it was written in Perl. And that, for like 10 years, I maintained this thing until it just became less useful. But I haven't done a whole lot of front end work. I do mostly back end systems work. So that's, in my experience. But as an educator, it's a whole different thing. When I write code as an educator, I'm writing code to demonstrate how to write good code. It's not so much, I'm not writing applications still. I'm not, writing a word processor or a game, right? I'm writing little snippets of code that people can use, and they go, oh, that's how you use that library function, or, that's how you use that language feature. So when I think about, maybe getting into some training around gaming, I'm thinking on that level, how would I need to break it down. What are the things that need to be done, and how would I do those individual things? What are the very specific techniques that you'll be using as a game developer, and how can I best demonstrate and teach those techniques? So I do think about this, and I think it may be the future of my channel. after we get like the basic language instruction up. We've got C++ up, we've got SQL up, and I'm working on Python now. And once those things are up, and I'll probably expand them a little bit, and then I'm thinking about what's going to come next. And I'm thinking along these lines. For my part, I would be very interested in writing some mobile games. I've always wanted a good blackjack game.
Oh man, writing a tutorial for how to make a mobile game would go absolutely so hard. It would go insane. It would be insanity. And I think that should be your next project. Real talk. I really do think that because that's always been a trending topic with people learning coding.
Especially if I can find a way to do it without using C#.
Well, there you go. If anyone could figure it out, it's you. I believe in you.
My problem with C# is not so much that the language is a gigantic kludge, which it is, but also that its application is so limited. I don't like single-use tools. In my kitchen, I have an Instant Pot, and I got rid of like 3 other tools when I got my I got rid of a rice cooker. I got rid of I used to have a slow cooker, for making soups and stews. I got rid of all this stuff, and I do all these things now. Because now it's one thing, it sits on my counter, and it does all these lots of things. It's what I love about C++, and it's what I love about Python, is you can use it for so many different things. C# is very much limited to Windows programming, and perhaps also this Unity engine thing, which, if that turns out to be the way that you write games for mobile, then so be it. But I'm gonna look hard at it. I'm not fond of C#. And again, it's just because if I want to write Windows code, I can do that in C++. I can do it in Python, but I can also use that same code on a Mac. I can use that same code on Linux. I can use that same code on an embedded system. And so it's, I learn one thing and it's useful for all this stuff. And I like that. Anyway.
Okay, so then has somebody invented this yet? Is this possible? A translator where you copy all of your code in C++ or in Python. You copy all of that code, right? And then you paste it in the software, the translation service, and say, okay, well, now I want this translated to be in JavaScript or in C#. Has that been invented yet? Or did I just spoil a $1 million idea?
Yeah. There are translators available, and they work to an extent. The problem is that the paradigms of these different languages are different. So there's not always a direct translation available.
Right, but it might make the work of translating it or of having to use a different language, it might make that work a lot easier, because then instead of starting from scratch and redoing the whole thing all over again, right now you're just being like, oh, okay, well, did it mistranslate this because of a certain paradigm that I added on the first language? Like, I don't know. I think that there's potential there to streamline some work.
You're so excited about this idea.
And I'm sorry. I mean, I'm excited. I'm like, you know what? If you don't want to use C#, then I'll make you a translator.
I very much applaud your enthusiasm, and very, very smart people have been working on this problem for many, many years. The problem is in how these languages work. Okay, in C++, for example, you're managing the memory yourself, and so in order to create an object, you allocate memory for that object. You create the object, you use the object, you move it around in memory, and you do all these things. In a higher level language like C#, which is based on Java, None of that exists, and it has automatic garbage collection. So it does it in a very, very different way at a fundamental level. And there are not direct translations. There are some rough translations that you could do, but this is not the same as in Spanish, you may say, "Donde está el baño?" And in English, you may say, "Where's the men's room?" Right? It's not a direct translation like that. You see?
I see.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the whole concept of el baño may not even exist in this other language because that's a function that's handled automatically.
I would
Well,
think that that's a function that everybody has. So in human languages, at least, I would think there would be a word for el baño, a bathroom, for every single language, because that is unfortunately not a function that has been automated yet.
Right,
Or
but
the meat machines.
the object that you're working with is a meat machine, is a human body, and that object is more or less the same in France as it is in Spain, but it's not the same in C++ as it is in Python as it is in C#.
Gotcha.
If you go back and watch when we put you in the hot seat for SQL, you were doing, I want to say, a join, and you couldn't remember right off the top of your head. Like, it took you, when I say a couple tries, it was like you typed it in once and you were like, that's wrong, and then typed it in again and it was right. But you were like, I can't remember.
Yeah, because it's just, the keywords, you have to remember the keywords. I mean, I'm doing a project, I'll keep a cheat sheet nearby, and I probably should have done that for that.
No, it was brilliant.
Words, but yeah, but that's just the details. The details of the language are easy. What's hard is somebody who has grown up writing good Python to sit down and write good C++. It takes a little bit of rewiring your brain. It takes a little bit of thinking in different paradigms, and and that's why you want to start with, I always tell people who are starting out, your first language should be C. And that's not just because it was my first language. It was my first language because it was, there weren't a whole lot of choices when I was first learning back in the 70s. But it gets you really, really close to the machine. And going from C to Python is easy. Going from Python to C or C++ is hard, because now you're taking care of different parts of the machine that you don't even have to think about in Python. And if you're going from C++ to Python, then you're looking at Python and you're saying, okay, so the memory management is handled for me, but it's still going on under the hood. And I have some idea in my head of, if I'm writing a really, really big string and I'm copying it from one object to another, in my brain, I can see all of those copy movements going on. I can go, oh, this is inefficient. I want to find a way to do this without copying, maybe put it in one place and use it from there. And so the translation in that direction is so much easier. This is why I like for people to learn C first. And then from there, they can either learn C++, which I think is a great way to go, or they can learn Python, or they can learn Perl, or they can learn Java or C# or JavaScript or whatever. But it's so much easier going in that direction than going in the other direction. And it's really not a lot more work. It is more work, but not a lot more work to start with the lower level languages. And it's so incredibly rewarding. So I really
you're saying C is a gateway language.
C is a gateway language. Yes.
Is that what I'm understanding?
We give you the first taste for free.
As they do. As they do.
We hang out on college campuses.
Wait a minute. I don't want to talk about that. My age is showing.
Speaking of hanging out on college campuses, Kirsten, do you have anything for me on what the flavors of the month are, or the week rather, for Crumbl Cookies?
Yes, I do.
I need to.
They're really milking the whole Easter weekend coming up. Because their big ones are carrot cake, like a regular sugar cookie with candy eggs.
You know that real rabbits don't eat carrots, and actually carrots are harmful to real rabbits.
I'm just saying they're really churching up the theme around here. And then we've got like classic milk chocolate chip and iced oatmeal, and oatmeal cookies are the reason I have trust issues, especially oatmeal raisins. Double fudge brownie and lemon bar.
Double fudge brownie. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. When my dad would go to work, I wouldn't really see him during the week, but sometimes when I would get home from school or like the next morning, there would be 2 double chocolate chip cookies sitting on the counter for me and my sister that he would bring back from his work commissary dining hall area. And he'd bring back the double fudge cookies. And those were the best mornings ever because me and my sister loved, I have still to this day never had a double fudge chocolate cookie as good as those ones from my childhood ever. And I love those. So now I'm glad to know that they have them at Crumbl like this week only.
This week and this week only. And this website that I found
Where do we get
gives
these
you,
cookies?
huh?
Where do we get these Crumbl cookies?
I'll bring you one tomorrow if you want.
So
Okay. Well, okay, and what flavor are you going to bring me?
Let me know which one you want. Did you say they had lemon?
yes, a lemon
I have
bar.
had the Crumbl cookie lemon before, and it is phenomenal. It's really good.
You say
But-
there's chocolate chip?
Yes. A milk
Chip?
chocolate chip.
Ooh.
Chocolate chip Crumbl cookie.
Alrighty. We'll have to do a quick, maybe a 5-minute live in the middle of the day and do actually no, we'll do it as a TikTok, trying Crumbl cookies for the first time. Crumbl cookie unboxing.
My girlfriend's mother-in-law, that was kind of confusing, bought a Crumbl cookie because the cookies there are like probably like this big. So they're just like abnormally large cookies. And she bought from Crumbl a Crumbl cookie cutter. It will cut your cookie into fourths because that's about all you can handle in one sitting because they are just so rich. But yeah, she bought a little cutter and I was like, they'll sell anything nowadays. Like,
Can I just use my chef's knife to cut it?
absolutely you can. But in case you didn't want to, I know you're
In
big.
case you wanted another kitchen gadget.
You know, I like to keep those to a minimum.
Now that your Instant Pot has cleared up some space, you can upgrade to a Crumbl cookie cutter. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Instant Pot took care of that too.
honestly, yeah, you stick it in there and it somehow just chops it into quarters right there.
Still have too much stuff on that counter.
Yeah. So yeah, and the reason I realized after we talked about it earlier today, the reason it's trending is because they released the flavors Sunday night.
I see.
Everybody woke up this morning and they were like, what flavors do they have at Crumbl? Not because there's like something exciting about it. It's just that's when it was just a timing issue on my part.
It's exciting to me.
These trending topics, do these come from Twitter?
Oh, you know, a little bit of here, a little bit of there. I feel like Ricky's are a lot more reliable.
Twitter is dying fast, and Elno did something else this weekend to make it die even faster.
What did he do?
Well, you know, the whole controversy around the blue checks.
Yes.
So it used to mean when you had a blue check that this was an authentic, that this was actually the person or the company, and it wasn't an imposter. That was all that the blue check meant. And that encouraged people to have a certain amount of trust that who they were talking to was who they were talking to. So Elno decided that that was not the value of the blue check, that the value of the blue check was elitist and those were the people who thought they were important. And so he decided he wanted to democratize the blue checks and give it to everyone for a price, because he also needed to generate revenue. So he started selling the blue checks for $8.
Yeah. So if you go check my Twitter,
$8 a month, and you can have a blue check of your very own. But they do not, they still call it verified, but it is not verified. There's no authentication. There's no, they don't check your driver's license. They don't check anything.
Well,
If you want to, you could create a and people do this all the time just to prove that it can be done, and just for shits and giggles, they'll create an account with the name of some celebrity or some public figure, or US senator, and they'll buy a blue check for it.
this is me giving Elon side eye for that decision.
okay, that's pretty good. I feel like you're finally getting the hang of the avatar.
I really am. It's great. So, Bear, would you say that he is turning it into a Czech Republic?
Bad dad jokes for the win, ladies and gentlemen.
So this weekend, he had announced that all of the legacy blue checks were going away. On April 1st, he was going to remove all of the legacy blue checks, and the only blue checks would be the people who paid for them. And if you're a business, you have to pay $1,000 a month instead of $8 a month. And so the New York Times came out and they said, no, we're not going to pay for it, because it's meaningless. It's useless. It doesn't mean anything anymore. It does not mean that we're the authentic New York Times feed, and there's just no reason to pay for it. It's why, and so they went back and forth with Elno, and finally, April 1st came and went, and there was no change. And then on April 2nd, which was Sunday, is that right?
That is correct.
Unexpectedly just changed the description of all of the blue checks, the paid for ones and the old legacy ones, to say this account is verified either because they're a member of Twitter Blue or because they're a legacy account. So they all look the same and you can't tell anymore.
It sounds like a very bad and poorly timed April Fool's joke.
It does, and many people speculated about that, but it's there's now just, it's one less reason to even be on Twitter anymore, because you can't tell who's who anymore. And that used to be a feature of Twitter, and it's not anymore. So yeah. Anyway, that's the Twitter news. People often ask me, and I'm just going to switch back to coding here for a brief moment. People often ask me, what should I learn in order to be a developer and to get a good job as a developer? And so my answer, if I'm talking specifically about game development, my answer doesn't really change that much. First, learn C and C++, because that's going to serve you well no matter what you do. But also, the highest paying jobs in game development, the ones where you're going to get mid six figures, are the C++ jobs using Unreal Engine, because those are the jobs at the big game developer companies. The second thing I would learn is I would learn Python, because no matter where you are and what you're doing, you're always going to want to write some quick scripts. And Python is just a great language for that. Perl is also a great language for that, but it's just not as popular, and there aren't very many jobs in Perl anymore. There are some still. There are some big Perl houses still. You can find good jobs in Perl, and I love Perl. So there's that. But the other thing that I would recommend is that you really study object-oriented programming. You get yourself some good books, and I'm going to try over the next week or two to come up with some recommendations of some good books for object-oriented programming. just for the theories of it, and the Gang of Four book. The books that I have are old, and there's probably better, newer books available. And I would I would learn Unreal Engine, and you can download it for free. You can use it for free. You can build your own games for free. They don't start charging you until you earn $1 million or more on your game. And then they want their, 5%, I think. And so those are the things that I would do. If I were getting started today in programming and I wanted to find a good job, doing coding, that's where I would start.
That was beautiful. And I'm clipping that and making a whole video out of just that, because that was perfect.
Okay, good. Good. I love when I'm perfect. That's like my favorite thing.
I suppose you're on a roll.
I wish we could just like throw up the picture.
Yeah.
There's on a roll.
So that's all I got today. You kids got anything? Did we get any comments? How many viewers do we have?
We went up to 6 and we have 4 currently.
That's excellent.
Plus, we should be getting a lot once we tune off, and then because it takes a while for people to search.
Right, and then we can
our common tagged. But yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
And I have an idea for a stream for later this week. If we're on the topic of video games, I think we should do a live Twitch stream just on Twitch, and live stream us playing a video game together, or you playing a video game and us providing commentary. I think that would be very good.
This is one of the areas in which I am old. I used to try to play online video games with Dee when they were younger, when they were a teenager, and they just beat the pants off me every time. I mean,
that's the fun of it.
Super embarrassing. So
that's the fun of it.
You want to embarrass me, is what you?
Okay. No, I want to title it "Bear Tries Video Game for the First Time," and we get your honest reaction.
Okay. Cool. We'll do that.
Cool.
And I'm going to have to learn like what the keys are and stuff, right? Because I don't have one of these things. I just have the.
Nope, it's going to be the keys on the keyboard, and we'll teach you which one it is and what goes where. And it'll probably be us playing this game for the first time too, because I don't do a lot of video gaming, especially not on like PC or computer or anything like that. And I don't know if Kirsten does a lot of gaming. Do you do a lot of gaming? Are you a Fortnite queen?
I'll let you make your own inference off of that reaction right there.
Okay, Fortnite queen.
It's
Battle Royale.
Comments.
Just adorable that Ricky thinks that a mom of 2 has any time to play games.
Maybe that's how I bond with my kids.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't know. Maybe you guys all have family Fortnite Fridays. And you all battle royale together.
Build a fort, and then we play Fortnite.
Oh, and then you go night.
And then we go night after Fortnite in the fort after we play Fortnite.
Oh. Yep.
We'll definitely do that then.
Cool.
Time to do that this week. All right, kids. It's been fabulous. Love y'all. It's been great. Please, those of you following along at home, please tell all your friends. Let's get some more viewers up here. Love you. Bye.
Bye.